Hey everyone. Okay, so welcome back to Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. We are continuing to talk about the law of attraction, how to make it work for you. I have 2 years of episodes before this one that all pertain to how to resolve your emotional trauma, any damage, any of the limiting beliefs that you might have that actually kind of have a root system within your subconscious, usually from generational trauma that was carried forward. And that is the way that there's a flaw in the way that the law of attraction is taught. It teaches us we're not allowed to have negative thoughts. You're going to have negative thoughts. It is that resolving them, understanding them where they come from, not being afraid of a fear response in you as something that should hold you back, but rather something that you're trying to guide yourself through. So that the idea that you're not supposed to have any doubt or any fear is not really something that people can achieve in a very fear-dominated world. Most of the media outlets in the United States are real fearmongers because our news got turned into entertainment. And so they're trying to get eyeballs on them, and they overstate things, and they're overdramatic, or they're fearmongering, or they're trying to cause more conflict. A lot of the time, we don't have very good, reliable news in this country any longer. And the reason I'm referring to that has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with these influences that are within any society that really determine a baseline setting for how you feel about your life in your subconscious. And I'm going to talk to you about how to overcome that. And one of the ways is going to be connecting to ancestral knowledge, but it does not have to be through altar work or veneration or offerings. It doesn't have to be through that. There are a lot of different ways to connect to ancestral knowledge. If you are hearing me today, you have an ancestor who survived. You have an ancestor who thrived. You come from a line of people who continue to overcome. There is that confidence somewhere within you, but that overreaching, fear-driven algorithm that says, like, this is what makes people watch. They'll ignore everything except something they think they're supposed to worry about. We're trying to overcome that energy to live in a source of abundance and to tap into the confidence that we have a tendency to leave behind in the modern world. First of all, the easiest way to approach the idea that there is fear holding you back is to understand that every single action you undertake within this world, you are overcoming something that is a real threat to your survival every single second, every single moment. You just don't think of it that way because it's a given. I'm going to tell you the 3 most dangerous things you do every single day. And if you are prone to panic attacks or to suggestion around an anxiety disorder, this is where you should go and check out the 2 years beforehand so that you can maybe heal and resolve that a little bit. But because it's something people do not think about. The 3 most dangerous things you do every day are walk up and down stairs, get into a car, or take a shower. Statistically, these are dangerous activities because injury, up to and including death, can occur in any of those activities, but we do them constantly. And we do them with a confidence that this is something that I know how to do, I can navigate it, and I am not being careless. It is part of my regular routine, the way that I walk through this world. And the reason that connecting to your ancestral knowledge will help you is that survival was not a given. And we're not talking about Ancestry.com, in the 1800s, Beth married, Tobias, and we're not talking about that type of ancestry, although that also matters. We're talking about the knowledge and the people who came before that, the people who managed to overcome over and over and over again. And I do a lot of ancient civilization studies at this particular point and have been pretty fascinated by the collapse at the end of the Bronze Age and what brought that about, because historians really don't know what brought it about. I think Egypt was the only country that really was pretty much immune to the collapse at the end of the Bronze Age. And what happened there, they don't know. It could have been a factor of rising conflict, dwindling resources, famine, starvation. So there have been events that have wiped out entire ancestral lines, but you're here and you're now. And so that means that you have somebody in your ancestry that survived and took it for granted that they had the skill sets to navigate the difficulties and the challenges that we all face. Like going up and down the stairs, like getting into your car and going somewhere, even though it's literally the most perilous thing any of us do. It is honest to goodness, we become desensitized to risk when it is a necessary part of simply moving through this world. And that's what you're trying to tap into when you're trying to overcome fear and overcome doubt. Because what holds people back is a lack of belief. When they talk about not having any negative emotions or negative thoughts and you can't allow yourself that, what they're actually talking about is you need to believe that you can do this. You need to have it as a given, as that undercurrent of, I go up and down the stairs and I don't really worry about it. It's just an automatic thing. Because somewhere inside of me, I'm like, I have the skill to do this. We don't usually view it as perilous because it's very automatic. When you get into a car, you know that you have airbags, you know that you have an anti-locking brake system, you know that there are other safeguards, but then mostly it relies on your skill. So you're actually displaying a lot of confidence when you get behind the wheel. And getting in and out of the shower, that really is that is the wild card in this. This is where the put one foot wrong on this earth and you can slip, slide, and fall. And we understand that without focusing on it, without it overtaking our ability to think about other things. And when we're trying to manifest, what we're trying to do is to overcome the doubt and the fear that is pervasive in our society and even within ourselves. Because when we don't have what we're trying to manifest, a part of us thinks we might not deserve it. A part of us thinks that it can't happen. A part of us are schooled towards failure. I come from a Generation X, and I've used examples from my childhood before. I'm not going to right here, because Generation X is really known for having experienced a lot of parental neglect. And it wasn't malicious, it was just societal. But there, that joke about the ad, it's 10 o'clock, do you know where your children are? That was a real thing. And a lot of times the answer was no. It was very, very common for kids to just be free range, and kids from small all the way to grown. And we had a lot of stuff, weird things happen to us, leaving us with unresolved trauma and an undercurrent of a fear of making mistakes due to some of the fiction that we were exposed to as well. We had a lot of catastrophe type of movies and, the hero overcomes type of movies. And all of that has an influence on what you subconsciously believe you can and cannot do. And also, it has an influence on what you view as being dangerous. And people think changing something is dangerous. And it can mean that things will change and you may lose things. One of the things that we have to accept that failure is actually a part of the success process. It's what teaches you how to do something differently. When you begin something new, you have to give yourself permission to not be great at it, to flounder around and have room to improve. We think that if we try something new and we try to go for something and it doesn't succeed in this grand fashion right away, it means, oh, that can't be for me. No, it means you have something to learn in order to be able to bring something towards you to retain it. And that is the law of attraction. And that energy starts with a belief and an acceptance that we struggle with. And here is how ancestral connection can help you with that. You have the best versions of your ancestors are available to you. Meaning the part of them that continues. Everything that I do tells me that there is something that beyond this world. Do I fully understand it? No, nobody gets to fully understand it. Nobody gets to fully understand it. All the belief systems, your beliefs are right for you. Whatever it is that you believe, if you like the light worker narrative and that one really speaks to you, that feels like your core truth, it's right for you. Is it right for me? No. Celestial and angelic magic has been the right thing for me. Whatever connects you to a collective power is right for you. Those are your beliefs. And what you need in order to be able to manifest is belief. And your ancestors understand things. They have been through so many things as well. And they also walked through this world doing things that we would consider incredibly dangerous constantly. All the time, and particularly before westernized medicine was available, dying of a simple infection was very, very common. Childbirth resulted in death, and women dying of retained placentas a lot of the time caused a particular form of infection that killed a lot of women. It has been perilous to be alive, but many of us undertake the things that we do exaggerating the peril of the idea of not succeeding right away. That is the biggest fear that people have. And your ancestors, in order to survive, had to overcome that fear. And again, revisit the idea of, do you get scared when you go up and down stairs? Maybe you do. Some people are in bodies where it's very dangerous, but for the majority of people listening to this, you walk up and down the stairs. And yet it really is something that is dangerous. But you believe in your ability to do it, even though it has risk. Even though it has risk. And whatever we're doing, we have to pay attention to whatever red flags it is, whether it's pursuing a relationship, a career, an investment opportunity is a big important one to be very important, very acquainted with what the red flags might be. But every form of growth encompasses a need to take a risk. And not being afraid of that risk is what you're trying to achieve when you're trying to make the law of attraction work for you. So, connecting to your ancestral ability to have confidence in your ability to survive, because they did. Some of them may have died at 35. Some of them may, in fact, have died in childbirth. Some of them have died from the perilous act of living. It is perilous to be alive. There's a lot of things that can take you out, but we do it because there are very few alternatives that involve anything other than being dead. I am being a little glib, but guys, we are too afraid of things, and it is the thing that holds people back. And one of the easiest ways to get over a fear is to start laughing at it, and eventually everything comes to an end. So have a good time while you're here. Have a good time with the idea that your life is a heroic journey where you're writing it and you're the main character. You're the main character writing your hero's journey. And tapping into the idea that I have stretching back to literally the start of people, ancestral connections that will help me believe in my ability to survive, that knew how to survive, that had skills that I don't retain. And this is how you start connecting to your ancestral magic, your ancestral knowledge, your ancestral energy, because that's a collective too. You want to draw from that, having resolved the emotional trauma or generational trauma, also known as generational curses, that I did 2 years worth of work to try and help you do that. And they're fully resolvable. They really are. You can be set free from them sometimes it's with a managed routine. I will always have a tendency towards depression that I have to be very careful with. It means getting a lot of exercise, watching my diet very carefully. I don't personally take meds for it, but I would never discourage somebody from taking meds. It's one of the benefits of living in a time where we understand neuroscience and brain chemistry. Take advantage of the tools that are available to you. Don't be afraid to use them. Don't be afraid to make a change in your life. People don't make changes because they're afraid things are going to get worse. But if they don't make changes, things can never get better. And your ancestors are the ones that have gotten you to this point in time where trying to pursue a manifestation, a desire, a dream is something that you can focus on. So you have good odds because you've got good people at your back. But how can you connect to them if you're not like, I don't want to have an altar in my home. I don't want to light candles and incense, and it feels weird and hokey to me. Again, beliefs being right for you. It's fine if it does. Here's the easiest way to do it. Learn how to do things for yourself at a low level skill level. It can be baking bread. I've known how to bake bread for a while, and I started doing it again not that long ago because I picked up a loaf of bread at the grocery store, and like everything else, it was far more expensive. And by the way, that's one of the ways that they're controlling us through fear. As we have more and more choices available to us, they will do things like have rising costs all over the place in order to make you more fearful, because we are controlled as a people through fear. It's just the way it works so often. The fear of not having enough being the biggest fear. So one of the ways to combat that would be to do exactly what I did. When I picked up the loaf of bread, it was at least $1 more expensive, and my eyes fell on the ingredient list, and I was like shopping for good bread, like, San Francisco bakery bread. And I saw that the list of ingredients was at least 12 ingredients long. And I was like, God, that's weird, because I know how to bake bread. There should be, if it doesn't have any preservatives in it, it will spoil frequently or go stale frequently. But, it's like 4 or 5 at the most. But you can make really good bread with just 3, 4. Yeast, salt, flour, and water. And you can make no-knead bread, and so I started making bread again. And it's doing really well. And the first time I tried it, because I did decide to go for no-knead, it did not turn out super well, but that's part of encompassing, don't have that fear of like, if I can't do it well immediately, I'm not meant to be doing it. Everything is a honed and gained skill, including the ability to manifest. Learning how to do something that your ancestors did as a way of part of their everyday life, of part of that sustained and continued survival, like baking bread, is one of the ways to connect to ancestral flow. You're trying to get in an ancestral flowing area because you're like, wait, no, they were all really, 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 really sick. And yet they managed to survive all the way to this point, which means that if you kind of weed the garden of all the emotional disorders and difficulties and poorly learned social skills, then what you've got are really tough people who kept going despite having a lot on their plate. So resolve that side, and guess what remains? The ability to have a lot of things at your disposal that would, and it doesn't mean you wake up and magically know how to be a corn farmer. What it means is you are tapping into their ability to persevere, because that's the biggest and the most important component of manifestation of the law of attraction, of any form of achievement or success, is the ability to persevere, to keep going, to take breaks when you need to, and to pick it up and keep going. Now, is there ever a point where you're supposed to recognize this is not for me? Yeah, but like you won't be able to miss it. You won't be able to miss it. It will really be, you will get blocked in the ways that you need to. But the idea that something doesn't succeed immediately is supposed to be a blocking energy is not. It means that you have something to learn, and your ancestors have a lot of knowledge. So you can learn how to bake bread. You can learn how to sew. You can, anything that you can think of that used to be a regular skill is going to be something, if you acquire that, knitting, crocheting, gardening, because being able to grow your own food would be a great thing. If none of these things sound appealing to you, then again, the easiest thing to do is with your food. For goodness sake, cook with some form of dried bean or dried lentil regularly, because those are the reasons that people survived difficult times. There were collapses of gigantic civilizations during the Bronze Age that really the historians don't even really fully understand what caused the collapse, but it was resource deprivation, raids from something called the Sea People, bad harvests. Dried foods are the thing that got your ancestors through seasons where there was I forget the actual year, it's like 856 or something. I'm positive that's not the right one, but it's right in that area, where there was a year without sunshine all across the world due to a volcanic eruption. They've carbon dated it through trees and how it affected the greater world. But think of what that did to harvests for that entire time. And we're very used to convenience food. And so the easiest way to reconnect to your ancestral flow is by learning how to feed yourself through minimally processed foods. And this is not about snobbery. It's not. It's about connecting yourself to connective tissue. Dried lentils, dried beans. Guaranteed you have ancestors who are here because of the ability to preserve food through drying, which got people through the non-growing seasons. Those are the reasons that your genetic line survived. So learn how to cook with them occasionally. Doesn't have to be all the time. Rice, dried beans, lentils, and different forms of grain as well. Look into the ancient grains. Easiest way is through food. We go towards an exterior source to provide for our sustenance all the time. And most of us can't be farmers, but what we can do is have some carefully planned out meals that rely on the fewest numbers of highly processed ingredients, because that is another way to connect us. All those chemicals in our food are great for preservation. They are. They're not all evil. And genetic modification is not actually, in food, is not actually an evil concept either. But it distances us from the people who came before us because it is a thoroughly modern invention. Modern medicine is fantastic. Modern food preparation and preservation has a lot of chemical additives that aren't particularly good for us, so stepping away from them a couple of times a week is very, very helpful. And the reason that I say dried beans, dried lentils, easiest way, it doesn't matter if you're in a food desert and all you have is a Dollar General. They're going to be selling some dried beans, because it's considered poverty food. But if you learn how to cook with them on a regular basis, you will be tapping into the versatility of your ancestral line. And the versatility of your ancestral line got it done and got you here. You want to connect. So maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I hate beans, I hate lentils, I hate cooking. There is nothing that would give me less joy. There are other ways to do it as well. And it's a goofy one, but it really does work, is dancing, and particularly outside. There's a reason that all indigenous cultures, they're seen dancing usually by firelight. That is something that it is a ritual and a ceremony that connects them to their belief system. If you engage in ritual and ceremony that connects you, then it doesn't have to be, you do not have to don headdresses and paint your face and wave things that you're uncomfortable waving because you're not part of that practice. Maybe you have an ancestral tie to a closed practice that you have long since outgrown. Simple dancing is the easiest way to do that. You put on music that reminds you of your own lineage. It can be from your own childhood, and you dance to it. And try to have it be a rhythmic movement, not just in place, like dancing back and forth. And it just puts you in flow. People can feel goofy doing it, but it's what works. The other thing you can do is simply do some research. If you're like, no, I'm not going to be dancing around either. I have a body where my knees hurt all the time. I'm not going to do that. Don't like to cook. What else can you do? You can do research. You can do research into your ancestors and where they came from, and then reacquaint yourself with whatever history surrounded them, and you will be weaving yourself back into the narrative of those who survived, achieved, and thrived. And if you've been through many seasons of poverty in your ancestral line, please understand that even people who have an ancestral tie to enslaved people, because most of us do, we forget that slavery is not just a concept about what the United States had a freaking civil war over. It is a universal thing. One of the things I find in studying ancient history is how common it was for, like, the Vikings would enslave people from, like, one thing, the show Vikings was actually being very literal in when they, broke into a monastery and enslaved the monks. It was very common to treat people as commodities. So slavery was not just a part of a particular skin tone, meaning that if we all come from an ancient line, then we all have a tie to that somehow. I refer to my grandfather going into the mines at 13, which that form of poverty is a form of enslavement, and just being bright enough and hardworking enough that he became the manager of the mine. And I still don't know how he did it. He's been dead for a very long time. But he was incredibly physically vital, and he was very, 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 very bright. And so he took that combination and he turned an entire, world around for his generation. He died very young and didn't get to really enjoy his own retirement. But he was as far as I know, he had a lot of positive influence in the world around him, but I also understand that he was a very emotionally abusive person and reactive in his own right. Because people didn't know to question some of their behaviors as right or wrong. And it's not really a question of right or wrong. Sometimes it's whether it's productive or counterproductive. And so that's the easiest way to look at my grandfather and some of the things I know about him is he had a lot of counterproductive things that went along with that tremendous strength of will. What you are trying to do when you are tapping into your ancestral line is not simply to honor their struggles, but to get in touch with the courage that they had, the everyday courage through moment to moment to not question that I'm not going to live my entire life going, and we could starve this winter, there isn't enough rain. Like you would know that, yeah, that's why we have all those dried goods in the dry room. You would be prepared for the challenges of life because there isn't an expectation that life would have fewer challenges in it. And that's what all those convenience foods and all the things that we reach for as a matter of convenience really have as the, icky underbelly is the opposite of convenience, of course, is something that is inconvenient and or challenging. In order to be able to go forward, you have to power through the challenges. Connecting yourself to your ancestral line is connecting you to the people who overcame their challenges long enough to continue the line. They're important to you, no matter what they were like. So do some research into the region of origin. Don't let it take over your personality entirely because there's a lot going on in you at this stage. On one side, I have Scottish coal miners, but I don't know what else that entails. There is, in sociology, there's something called the Cheddar Man. I guess it's actually archaeology as well. which is the oldest skeleton to have been found in the United Kingdom. And I forget the name literally has cheddar in it, like it's Cheddar Lounge or something, in England. And they found this very, very, very old skeleton. They managed to do a DNA profile from it and recreate the image. And then the BBC did a historical documentary connecting him to a modern day teacher, because they have incredibly strikingly similar facial features. Now, the actual reproduction from the DNA suggests that they would have had entirely different skin tones, and in fact that Cheddar Man, despite having been found in England, was likely some form of migrant. Because there's, I think it's West African DNA found within him. That's just a very clumsy example of there's more in your line than you know about. So don't just think that I found out that my, grandpa came over from Italy. Learn as much as you can about Italian culture, but understand that it's not the only thing that went into that. When you really open up to your ancestral power, you understand that concept of we are all one really, 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 really begins to make sense, because your influences can date back so much further than you think they are. And they have things that are carried forward. That ability to survive is within you. And it doesn't question the things that we do about survival. They are automatic and part of every single day, like going up and down the stairs, getting in a car, or jumping in the shower. These are inherently dangerous things that you do without fear, because you believe and have confidence in your ability to do these everyday tasks that are part of your need to survive. And when you are tapping into ancestral magic, ancestral knowledge, it goes deeper. You believe in your ability to find and provide food. You have skills that you can market because you know that you can do that, because they had trades, they had skills. I come from a long line of teachers on my dad's side. But that's not all. Like, there's not. I've spoken a little bit about, I'm descended from one of the Salem witches, and they were hanged, by the way. They were not actually burned. They were hanged as witches. Rebecca Nurse. Rebecca Nurse had 10 children who survived. She's also the oldest person that they accused of witchcraft and hanged as a result. There are so many people who have a tie to her. I actually met one, and she had a Scandinavian background, and I'm one of the least Scandinavian looking people around. But she was tall and blonde and incredibly Nordic looking, and we had a shared ancestor. And that's when you start to understand you are connected in ways that you do not understand. You could be standing next to somebody who has a similar lineage to you. But when you're trying to attract and manifest an abundant life, you need to kind of tap into the power available from the people who, even though it was hard, they kept going. They found a way. That's the persevering energy that you are trying to tap into, the way to persevere. So learn a skill, cook from scratch, use dried beans, do your research, dance, please dance. It might feel goofy, but you will be amazed. This is what I tell people in my collective, because I give, on the Patreon, I give advice on how to do things, and commit to yourself for 3 songs. Just give it a try. And if you're not willing to do even that much, accept that you're not willing to put the work in. Everything that we do, manifesting is not entirely effortless, and there has to be some form of 3D representation of the energy that you're trying to achieve, which is one of the reasons that the law of attraction teaches people to just act like you already have what you're trying to manifest. Or my suggestion would be, because that gets people into debt. They're like, yeah, I want to be rich, so I'll spend money like a crazy thing, and then it didn't come back, and then they're worried. There are other ways to do that, which is that you believe in the efforts that you make in your life. You spend money appropriately. You make sure that you have something that celebrates your life every single day. Even if it's just, I took 5 minutes on my lunch break and I went and looked at a pretty pond because it was pretty and I deserve 5 minutes of looking at this pretty pond. There is something you can do to celebrate your existence. 3D representation of an energy is important. And so one of the things that I had suggested is doing things like baking bread or cooking from scratch. There's also skill acquisition. If you want an expansion, if you want a manifestation, you have to have a skill acquisition and evolvement. And that is, again, why do not feel failure. You'll get better at things. Allow everything that is big has to have a foundation poured for it. So the efforts that you make in the 3D are pouring the foundation for your manifestation to come in and be retained. And I can manifest like a crazy person. When I was really unwell through all of that damage, I manifested incredibly amazing things, but I didn't retain them over the course of time because they were built on the faulty foundation that involved a lot of emotional repression, just trying to keep myself together. And that is what the 2+ years worth of work that I left behind in this podcast and on YouTube can help people do, is confront the healing that they need to do. Heal. And when you are strong, you tap into your ancestral strength and think about what those people could have done with the knowledge of what makes a person happy and healthy and well. They had the perseverance, they had the stick-to-itiveness, they had the hard-working ability to keep driving themselves. But you've learned how to not to drive yourself appropriately. So 3D representation of that is an important thing, which means that all big manifestation require you to put your shoulder to the wheel a little bit and work hard on expanding your skill set, which does involve embracing the idea of a failure as something that you're trying to learn from. What should I do differently next time to have a better result? The idea that the law of attraction will instantly bring you things, it will bring you things over the course of time. If it brings you something instantly, it's likely not going to have a long retention. Most things are worked towards and expanded, and what the law of attraction really does is increases the return of that energy. To turn your receivers on, connect to the people who are so powerful that they survived against all odds to get you here. Those are powerful people, regardless of how screwed up they might have been. Tap into that energy. And the other thing, of course, you can do is through veneration work, where you have a counter, an altar, a space, where you have a candle that you light and you call out your guides, your guardians, your ancestors, your angels, and you offer them something every day. That is the thing that, like, I do that and I do everything else because I'm trying to do as many things in this world to try and make it better. That's really like what my goal is in almost everything that I do. So I do a lot of work to try and have as much reach as I can to try and help other people also invest in this world in a way that will make it better, which always involves treating each other as kindly as we can, because that is the thing that resolves our tendency towards self-destruction through pointless conflict and resource acquisition. This is what history teaches us, is that we evolve to a certain point, we begin to deplenish our resources, and then we look to acquire them from other places, sometimes from allies that we've turned on and all kinds of things. But that if we lived in an abundant energy where we can create enough for all, that would resolve that and allow us to evolve as a species, which we hit a wall. We hit a wall over and over again. We have self-destructive, self-sabotaging tendencies. Can I make that big overcome for the world? Probably not, but I can sure give it my best shot in whatever I can do. And you can do. And you connect to the persevering energy of your ancestors. And if you're doing it through veneration work, you light a candle, maybe you make them a cup of coffee, maybe you give them a cookie, and you simply thank the energies that are available to you. Thank you. I'm sure you went through a lot, and you went through a lot without the knowledge base that I have that helped make me better. I have to remember that. I come from a long line of people who struggled but also achieved. They were the most high functioning. I'm pretty convinced at this point that many of them were neurodivergent, because substance abuse and neurodivergence are very related concepts as people self-medicate, trying to heal an internal pain that was not understood. Because I've long understood that it's like, I technically don't have any true addictions, but I can be prone towards substance abuse seeking emotional relief. Now, I'm not any longer. I actually resolved that through all the work that I did as well. But that is a diminishing thing that was present in my family line. And it didn't make sense because every single last one of them was a very, very functional form of smoker, of heavy drinker, of, in the case of my father, he was a porn addict as well. Oh, yippee. It was really, there's a lot in my family line. Addiction was frequently present, but that it appeared to be, considering all the teachers and the people with emotional regulation issues, I think that long before neurodivergence was recognized, and it can be something outside of the autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, which I'm positive my father had, he had time blindness and all kinds of things, and hyperfixation. also results quite frequently in addictive behaviors or substance abuse as a form of self-medication, which apparently is different from addiction. So I've learned a lot about what these people struggled with, and that gives me knowledge, and knowledge is, of course, power to overcome. But they were able to continue to overcome even without any of the help that I've had. Those are really, really strong people. Even if they confuse me into the choices that they made and not recognizing, man, why didn't you ever try to change? Because they didn't know there was a different way. It's that simple. Didn't know there was a different way. That information, that help, that sophisticated knowledge of emotional construction did not exist at the level that it does now. And we're really, really fortunate, because if you want to do the thing where the easiest thing to do for ancestor work and ancestor connection is to learn a new skill, it is available to you for free right now. Anything, if you have a broken clock and you're like, I would like to know how to fix this clock rather than buy a new clock. I'll get into that in a moment and how that also plays into it. Go on YouTube. There is somebody who already made a video that will teach you step by step how to fix whatever is broken in your life. And that is honoring our resources, which is something that we don't do. We don't do it enough. We throw away a lot of food. We we get tired of stuff and get new things so that we have something new and shiny to look at. And some of that's nice, but some of it's just really irresponsible to the fact that we have limited resources within a planet, and it's just that simple. Our ancestors had to honor their resources to survive. So fixing things is yet another way that you can connect to ancestors before you. They didn't get new things all the time. They fixed what they had, and they used what they had carefully if it was very important. We have to reconnect to the better parts while healing the damaging parts. And when you heal the damaged parts, which again, all back there on 2 years worth of episodes, they were exhausting to do, which is why I'm really referencing them a great deal. And I'm happy to be in a point where it's less of a constant, but it is the thing that you need to pay attention to. Are you frequently trying to shut down an emotion like fear or sadness through things like affirmations or visualizations? Are you self-medicating with that instead of healing it first? You have to heal, and then everything that you do goes into expanding your energy. Like energy will attract like energy. And if you're trying to hide from a need to heal something emotionally by doing all this work, then what you're attracting to is something that might manifest what you want, but will then shine a flashlight on what you need to heal, which is what happened to me. And am I glad about it? Yeah, no, it was really, really helpful. There were points in this entire journey where I would have said, oh no, I'm not grateful for it, but I am now, because I just kept doing the work. Connecting to, and it was partially because I started taking a really strong look at, well, everything I like about myself also came from these people. Sure, they left me with the trauma a la carte menu that is just maddening. But they also achieved a great deal despite all of that. So they gave me great gifts as well. I'm really fortunate to have been related to these very difficult people who they just kept going, even though they had a lot of things that would, in the modern day, really take a lot of people out. They kept going, they kept going, they kept going. I want that energy on my side. Learning how to fix things, honoring your resources, meaning that, get comfortable with the idea that waste is actually offensive to people who had to really, really be careful about physical survival. We have central heating, we have freezers, we have canned goods, we have many things that make it possible for us to get through bad periods. They had to have incredibly well-established understanding of what they had available to them and how to make the absolute most out of it. Honor your resources to the best of your ability, and that includes your spending habits with not being a miser about things, but also not spending to make yourself feel better, which is when we talk about celebrating life, finding a way to celebrate the moment. What would make me feel better right now? And if it's spending money to buy something, re-examine that. Is there something available to you that would make you feel better right now? And the one that just popped into my head is like, I have a balcony that you cannot see, but I watch it all day long, that has trees and hummingbirds, and it's really a beautiful thing to look out at every day. And the thing that popped into my head was like, yeah, walking outside and being able to smell the fresh air would make this particular moment better. There is always a way to celebrate the fact that you are feeling being in this ever rich and stimulating world. And try not to have it be leaning into structures that are trying to control you through want, need, and fear to make money off of you. The easiest way to connect to your ancestral line is to understand that every single last one of them had to have an independent spirit. Sure, they might have gone to churches and different schools and all kinds of things to learn different things, but it is self-reliance and independence are incredibly related concepts, and you come from self-reliant people. They might have formed communities, but everybody worked towards something. That's the energy that you're tapping into to try and sustain you through the fear of failure, through the time that you will need to have patience in order to allow bigger things to come in. The reality is big, it's hard to move it all around. When you're manifesting something, have patience with it. And if it isn't coming along, know that you're still in the learning phase. But it is key to connect to ancestral knowledge, magic, and stick-to-itiveness. They had a lot of just plain old-fashioned earth magic within them, the ability to survive a challenging 3D world. Connect yourself to that. So we've got the knowledge where you do some research, learn how to fix something, learn how to do something that is a basic skill like sewing, cooking, baking. When I say baking, maybe not cakes so much. Remember that anything that had to do with sustenance is a good idea, so bread is a great one as well. Ancestor veneration, where you do work where you literally, you speak the words aloud. You say, thank you for your sacrifices and I'm sorry for your struggles. Thank you for the strength you are willing to lend to me to make my path easier. Know that you're walking an easier path. Even with the modern day challenges, you're still walking an easier path because there are so many things that try to make you comfortable. And whenever you think I can't do something because I am afraid, please remember the 3 things that I named are not the only things that you are doing every single day that carries with it risk. You do things that are frightening by nature without ever giving them a thought because they're just part of the fabric of your reality. And that's how we learn how to treat fear to get over it. It's just part of the nature of the fabric of our reality. And you have to be okay with the idea of things changing. Because whenever you're trying to manifest something, you want things to fundamentally change. What we say to ourselves matters. Say things like, change is my friend. Everything I want will be manifesting in my life. I believe in my abilities and my power, and I believe that my ancestors are here to help me achieve because we are still connected. We are still connected. They got me to this point. They're able to help me be connected. And I will do another episode about how to spiritually connect more, including to your ancestors, but mostly for your guidance, because we do have it within us to have a lot of sway over the choices that we make. But this has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica, and I'm not sure I'm going to entitle this yet, but I'm sure I'll figure it out momentarily, which is how to tap into ancestral knowledge to overcome fear and doubt. Because when we talk about not allowing ourselves negative thoughts within the law of attraction, that is repression. It will make you sick. Instead, understanding fear and negativity are natural counterbalancing energies, but I believe in myself. I do not doubt that I will be able to do the things I need to do to survive, to thrive, to manifest, and to attract the life I want to live. This has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Thank you so much for joining me.